Knights, castles, swords, shields, kings, queens, magic, mages, dragons. That's the type of stuff we're talking about today because we're talking about 20 new and upcoming medieval games for 2024. Medieval, of course, can be pretty broad. That's how we're treating it. It's not strictly a medieval time period. It's just games that have some of those specific elements. And believe it or not, there's a lot of cool ones to talk about. We got 20 games, so let's get started off with number 20. Kinstrife is an upcoming game that's a medieval strategy RPG, but with the main hook being realistic physics simulations. As you can see on screen here with the combat, they're striving for realism with a bunch of different detailed levels of physics to articulate character movement, the swing of swords, and realistic damage. And while it might look goofy to some people out there, this type of combat is actually something that people really want. So Kinstrife isn't the first game to do this type of physics-based combat, but it is the first to implement it in a full medieval strategy RPG world, where you're going to create your own character, you're going to wander around and explore towns and go on quests to try and become a bigger knight or just general adventurer. So while at first glance to some people it might seem goofy, this is something that a lot of people have been wanting for a while. It's also just non-linear, single-player game, specifically set in 13th century Germany. There's a lot of potential here. It's from a small studio. This is really the only thing we've seen that they've worked on, but it has a lot of cool ideas. As of right now, Kinstrife is just slated as coming soon, but we're expecting to see more pretty soon. Next, over at number 19, we have the Quinfall, which looks to be a pretty massive and ambitious MMORPG. Absolutely vast worlds, a bunch of different types of characters to really build out. We've seen knights, archers, rogue type characters that do magic. Apparently the game is going to have dozens of different professions. And they're going for full medieval fantasy here, but covering a variety of different regions, a lot of environmental variety. Apparently taking advantage of RTX and ray tracing, and it's apparently going to have a full-featured story as well as all the MMORPG elements. So this is a lot. So while the developers are being somewhat transparent and showing off a lot of their updates on a YouTube channel, on the other hand, there's a lot of speculation out there and disappointment that apparently a lot of the game is just using Unreal Engine assets just thrown together in a game. So there is a lot of debate out there as to whether or not this game is going to be good. We're going to wait and judge the final release, of course, but as of right now, we're probably going to be seeing more from the Quinfall this year. Next, over at number 18, we have Project Awakening. This game was revealed on a PlayStation showcase as a PS4 title in 2018, and then by like 2019, it kind of went dark. It is from Cygames, who more recently you may remember made Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, but Project Awakening just looked like something different. It was like a big, massive medieval fantasy action RPG with potentially some really cool combat, you playing as a knight, like killing these big dragon bosses, almost kind of like more of an action combat-oriented Dragon's Dogma, like something a little bit more over the top. Unfortunately, they went quiet for a while with this game, and only just recently did the developers confirm that the game is still in the works and that it still exists. This was thanks to some journalists spotting the game confirmed as still being in the works in the publisher's earnings call. So we had seen a little gameplay and a thing in 2021, and we're expecting to see more from this one soon. And we hope we do because it did look really sweet. Next, over at number 17, we got something totally different. It's Legendary Tales in VR. This thing is just really cool if you're kind of like an old school RPG fan. This has been in early access for a while and pretty known in the VR community, but now in 2024, it's gotten its full release and it's kind of getting out there in more places. And essentially, the best way I can pitch it is something kind of like Oblivion or like kind of like old school Elder Scrolls, but in VR. The graphics are kind of lo-fi, but they have this really charming appeal to them, and you can kind of live out your knight fantasy here. There are a lot of games that have given you a sword and a shield and let you go crazy in medieval fantasy, but I just think the way that Legendary Tales goes about it, you know, the vibe, the tone to it all, is really, really unique. To be totally frank, I don't think GameRanks talks about VR as much as it should, so that's why I'm mentioning this. Next, over at number 16, we have The Awakener, Risen. Now, get past the generic title and you'll realize that this game is essentially an open-world action RPG set in a medieval Europe, but with a fantasy spin. And we're bringing this one up because it has been in the works for a while. It seems like 2024 is the year where it's going to release, and a lot of people have kind of dunked on the game by saying it's a ripoff of Dragon's Dogma, and yes, from some of the gameplay you can argue that, but the game has its own thing going on. A little bit of a different style, some really cool enemy types, types, and we're hoping something good can come from this. And you know what? If it does really turn out to feel like a Dragon's Dogma 2 ripoff, hell, there are some people out there that just want more Dragon's Dogma 2. So you could possibly get it with the Awakener Risen. We won't know for sure until we actually get our hands on it, but yeah. Next over at number 15, we have Anotria, The Last Song. I mean, in the last couple of years, it's worth acknowledging that there has been a deluge of games inspired by From Software's work with the Dark Souls games. A lot of games kind of using that formula or that subgenre and doing their own spin on it. And Anotria, The Last Song, is totally down with that. It is billed 100% by them as a Souls-like, but this is centered around Italian folklore. So it kind of seems like you're playing as these badass medieval Italian swordsmen, but like with a big fantasy spin on it, like over the top weird creepy bosses and enemy types. And just from the style alone and the types of characters on screen and the environments, this game does look pretty unique. The game development studio is actually from Italy. They've worked on a couple of games before, but none of them really hit the mainstream, so to speak, and this is definitely their biggest project by far, and we're really looking forward to seeing more of it. As of right now, it has a release date slated for August 21st, 2024. Next over at number 14, we're going to mention it. We've mentioned it in a lot of lists. It's Dragon Age Dreadwolf. EA and BioWare have been working on this one for a long time now, and we're really hoping and kind of speculating that 2024 is the year where we see it. It's been teased in the past. We've gotten little things, you know, we've gotten the title, we've gotten little cinematics, but nothing really substantial. And they've been working on this thing for so long. Dragon Age fans are really chomping at the bit. And like elephant in the room, there's obviously some huge potential here for BioWare to win back some fans. I don't know if you know this, but they've had some issues with the last couple of games. So this could essentially be their return to glory or another big misstep. We don't know for sure just because we haven't seen anything, but we think 2024 might be the year. At least we hope. Next over at number 13, here's something a little different. It's called Mirthwood. Check this out. This is like an isometric adventure in a medieval fantasy world where you create your own character, you kind of pick your character archetype, and you go out in the world and adventure. It seems like there's some survival elements, you're hunting, you're crafting, but you're also fighting enemies, getting quests from villagers, and just the art style and everything about it is different. It's refreshing. We played so many gritty, realistic, awesome medieval battle simulators and stuff like that. Sometimes I like a little bit more of an old school top-down RPG adventure, and this one, with the medieval fantasy vibes, seems like it could scratch a perfect itch. As of right now, this is slated for third quarter of 2024, and we can't wait to see more. Next over at number 12, we have Avowed. This is Obsidian's next big game. Obsidian, of course, the maker of legendary RPGs like Fallout New Vegas. This is their big collaboration with Xbox Game Studios, who now owns them. Avowed actually takes place in the same universe as their Pillars of Eternity games, but this is a different style of game. Some people are going to be calling it, of course, like Obsidian's Skyrim, but it looks a little different. It's first-person combat with some flexibility there, but the world, the setting, the art style, all of it just seems distinctly different. You're going to be swinging swords, slinging spells, and fighting monsters, and at this point, Obsidian is pretty good at that. This one, we still need to see more, honestly, because the few bits of gameplay they did show off wasn't enough. It's hard to really judge the game yet, but we do have some faith in Obsidian. They've made some really cool games in the past, and this one is slated for third quarter, fourth quarter 2024. Next over at number 11, we have PAX Day. This is a social sandbox MMO that is heavily medieval oriented, and it has a lot of potential. I mean, just looking at it, it seems cool. It seems like it's really going for actually replicating that medieval look and feel. There are some fantastical elements, sure, but mostly it's you living in this world, worrying about your village, taking care of your clan, making decisions, actually living life, possibly with other players, and then going out and adventuring, where the further you go away from the heartland, the more dangerous the world gets. You create your own character and you go out in this world that looks, frankly, pretty gorgeous. Just recently, at the time of making this video, there was an alpha playtest, and some of the early responses are pretty good. There's some gameplay out there, you get to see how vast the world is, how the combat kind of works, and we really think this one has potential. Apparently, it is going to be entering early access at some point in 2024, so you can check it out for yourself. Next, over at number 10, we have No Rest for the Wicked, the newest game from the people behind Ori and the Blind Forest and Ori and the Will of the Wisps. But No Rest for the Wicked is a very different game. It's a top-down medieval fantasy adventure RPG kind of in the vein of like a Diablo, but very much its own thing, where they focus on storytelling, adventuring, and exploration, and just a beautiful, gorgeous, unique art style. We did make a video on this game, and it being in early access, it does have flaws. Also, it's not the complete game yet. But the developers have very much been working on it constantly, adding updates, and it absolutely has a ton of potential. The foundations make for an awesome game that I'm already really enjoying. And when they really perfect everything for a full release, I think this is going to be a contender for just a kick-ass game. No Rest for the Wicked has fun combat, a really good sense of atmosphere and exploration. It's got some good gore and violence, and just a unique mythical fantasy world that's unlike any other I've seen in a game. So that's definitely worth something. Like I said, right now it is available on early access on PC, but eventually you're going to be able to play it on consoles too with the full release. Next, over at number 9, we have Kingmakers. This game is... this is awesome. I love this idea. I don't know if this counts as a medieval game, but damn it, you know what? I think it does. Essentially, it's a medieval battle simulator, kind of like RPG thing, but your character can utilize stuff from the 21st century. Yes, this game. If you're online a lot, you've seen the trailer for this, where there's a medieval battle going on with tons of enemy forces, and suddenly a guy in a pickup truck shows up, runs everybody over, gets out of the car, and shoots everybody with a gun. Yes, that's this game, and we think that's a really creative and fun idea, and we need more of those. And Kingmakers isn't like just a meme, like it's not just a viral moment. It seems like it's got actual action strategy sandbox elements to it, as well as like a whole element of building up your kingdom, doing all that, and then setting out to battle with planning where trebuchets go, where forces go, all that. Then you get to run in with a gun and have some fun. It could potentially be a really good mix of genres and really just a good send-up. It's being published by Tiny Build, and they know what they're doing, and this is releasing sometime in 2024. Next up at number 8, we have the Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. Yeah, Elden Ring isn't quite medieval, but like the year Elden Ring came out, we cheated on that medieval games list too, because you know what? There's swords, horses, shields, a lot of castles, so it counts for something. And Shadow of the Erdtree is one of the most anticipated releases of the year. That's crazy. It's also just a DLC or expansion for a game, but it's Elden Ring, one of the biggest games to hit in the last couple of years, so this is apparently going to be the biggest thing since sliced bread. From Software has been working on it for a while now. We don't know too much about it other than a trailer that showed some new abilities, some new bosses, a new area, which Miyazaki, series creator, has said that is roughly the size of Limgrave from the original game, so you have some perspective there, but we're just really excited to see what can go down with this one, because From Software does a really good job with their DLCs in the past, so we're really excited to see like what the next chapter of Elden Ring can really be, because that alone, just that phrase, is really exciting us. All you gotta know now is that it is releasing June 20th, 2024. Next, over at number 7, we have Chrono Odyssey, a game that's been in the works for a while, and frankly, it doesn't have a release date, but it looks absolutely awesome. We've seen knights on horseback running from monstrous dragons, you playing as kind of like a knight in shining armor with sword and shield, witches, mages, all of this going down almost as like MMORPG raids, because the game is an MMORPG, specifically for PS5. It's been heavily featured on the PlayStation YouTube channel and some gameplay trailers, and there's gotta be something to this one. The world looks absolutely massive and gorgeous. There's like 5 enemy factions in the game, and the Unreal Engine graphics are really working here. Again, this is another ambitious one. Frankly, I think at this point, high-powered, big-budget graphics MMORPGs just tend to be. We haven't really seen many pop off, but Chrono Odyssey is gonna give it a shot, and it seems like it's releasing in 2024. Now, next, over at number 6, we have the Gothic 1 remake. The original Gothic is getting the remake treatment, and it's been in the works for a minute now. And I think this is the type of game that it's like just what the doctor ordered. Look, if there's no new Elder Scrolls or really any other like old school kind of PC RPG coming out soon, Gothic ideally can scratch a certain itch for some people. It's being completely remade in Unreal Engine 5. It's looking absolutely gorgeous and hopefully a really good spin on the classic medieval fantasy RPG. And I mean, it's a tough remake because the original was from 2001, but PC fans really loved it. The original really had that old school PC vibe to it, but the new remake is coming not only to PC, but also PS5 and Xbox Series X and S. And it's slated as of right now for the second half of 2024. Next, over at number 5, we have Blight Survival. This one was announced a few years back and it made a splash thanks to its stunning visuals. A lone knight wandering through a plague-ridden landscape, slaying zombies. Absolutely stunning graphics, good, chunky, almost realistic, weighty combat, and people were just into that, man. But believe it or not, this game is more than just an adventure. Apparently it is going to have a story, but it's actually a medieval co-op extraction game. So you're going to be playing this with other people. This isn't just like a single player adventure. Some people want that, some people don't, but I think either way, some of this zombie killing and just like the atmosphere and tone here looks really, frankly, incredible. The fact that it seems like it might kind of have some survival horror elements to it too really have us excited. We haven't heard much from this one recently, but we're hoping it comes back in full force in 2024. I had to talk about this one because it's cool. Next, over at number 4, we have Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2. This is continuing the story of the original game, featuring a woman suffering from psychosis, but now adventuring to Iceland and engaging in battles with giants, men, and all kinds of weird, crazy stuff. Visually and tonally, I'll say with the original Hellblade and this one, there's nothing else out there quite like this. We've seen this type of style or vibe in films, but not in a game, and that's why I think the Hellblade games are special. I really hope the second one can really continue the momentum of the first, kind of expand on the combat and stuff, because this adventure does look really cool and gritty and frankly kind of scary. Thankfully, we'll be able to check it out soon. We don't have to wait too much longer because it's releasing May 21st, 2024. Next, down at number 3, we have Dragon's Dogma 2. This is one of the big RPG releases of the year, and it seems like Dragon's Dogma fans are absolutely loving it. Capcom knew what they were doing here. This game is a niche cult favorite, so they gave us more. They didn't reinvent the wheel, they made a sequel and carried those elements and those ideas and tried to flesh them out and make them better in a 2024 package. The game absolutely has flaws, but it also has a ton of charm and a bunch of content to play through in a really unique world with fun combat and character building and companion system. There really aren't any other RPGs like Dragon's Dogma and now 2, and I'm really curious to see how these games influence game development moving forward. Are we going to see other games really try and do a Dragon's Dogma type thing? We mentioned a game previously, but I don't know. There's something about Dragon's Dogma 2 and the development team behind it, like maybe it's just their magic. It's something that you can't quite replicate. So Dragon's Dogma 2 is definitely something you should consider looking into if you haven't already. Next, down at number 2, we have Manor Lords. This just released in early access for PC, and this is just a really cool idea for a game. It's being developed by a very small team, and it's a medieval strategy game that is actually all around city building. So while you are a person walking around and you can do like the big, large-scale siege tactical battles that you've seen in a lot of other medieval games, there's also a lot of city building elements to this that just make it seem a bit more compelling. Farms, houses, wells, roads, commerce, all that stuff that city builders really love is here with all the medieval battling stuff too. Falcon did the before you buy on this one and came away really liking it. It's got a lot of good elements. It is in early access, so there's some stuff it really needs to work out. But in terms of the idea, the strategy, medieval city builder kind of simulation hybrid, it really does a good job making good on those promises. Now finally, down at number 1, we have Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. This is the follow-up to Kingdom Come Deliverance, a game that had a cult following for a reason. It launched kind of in a rough state, but turned out to be a really unique experience centered around realism and some solid survival and simulation elements in a package that just really emphasized realism and storytelling in war-torn medieval Europe and the journey of the hero, essentially. And with the second game, you are continuing the footsteps of that hero, Henry, with a game that looks like it has a lot more action, a lot more combat, a more advanced main character, and the story just continuing. Warhorse absolutely crushed it with Kingdom Come Deliverance, not only just like the game, but also the long-term support. So Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, now with a bigger budget and more time, just has the potential to be a huge success and a really cool game. Thankfully, even though this game was just announced not too long ago, we know it's coming in 2024, so we're going to play it soon. But those are 20 new medieval games of 2024.